Alrighty, Roo. Okay, this is Genesis 40, getting further into Joseph. Alright, we just did chapter 39 with Potiphar's wife, so Joseph is now in prison for sexual assault, aggravated assault against Potiphar's wife. He's innocent of, but pretty much save face, it seems. Potiphar throws him into a pretty nice prison instead of killing him like they would have, because it's kind of up in the air that Potiphar doesn't totally trust his wife and her story, but he can't just let it be seen that he doesn't punish this dude who everyone suspects of assaulting his wife. And so Joseph is on top of the world with his being Jacob's #1 favorite son. On top of the world. He's having dreams about his brothers bowing down before him, even though he's the youngest. Jacob loves him. Great life. Blah, 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 blah. Brothers sell him into slavery. Alright. Well, you know what? I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to get to work. I'm still going to follow God's teachings. And you know what? After a few years, boom. Head of one of the chief officers of Pharaoh, the Secret Service. Now, you're now the steward of his household. Not only that, you increase his incomes and are a super successful steward of his household. Nice. Living on Easy Street again. I got this. Joseph's living high on the hog. Potiphar's wife wants to have sex with you. And she's trying to seduce Joseph left and right. He turns her down, but she frames him for aggravated assault. Potiphar throws him in prison. Once again, down in the lowest of lows. I had everything twice and I lost it. What should I do? Should I forsake my Lord? Nope, I'll keep worshiping God, and I'll put my head down and keep working hard. And being honest, respectful, kind, generous, and always praising my Lord and Creator. So what happens? The head of the prison puts you in charge of the prison. You're in charge of everything in the prison. Joseph gets it. And because he gets it, God keeps blessing him. Again, it's all reciprocal. If you get it, which is understanding that it's not about this world, it's about the next world, so you have to serve the Lord. How do you serve the Lord? You have honesty, integrity, respect, kindness, generosity, justice, righteousness, and you work hard. Well, you do all those things, you become successful again. Oh my goodness, who would have guessed it? And because you did all these things, God gives you blessings. What? Who would have thunk it? Crazy. Oh, is it always going to continue? No, you'll hit some hard points and have to start all over. But guess what? You do it again, you'll become successful again. So this is Joseph's story, basically. Alright, verse 40. He's in prison. And it came to pass, he's in charge of the prison, but he's also a prisoner. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended the Lord of the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward. So this baker, the chief baker and the chief butler did something to piss off Pharaoh, and he throws them in prison. So since they get thrown into prison, Joseph gets put in charge of them, basically. This is where we're at. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and he said to him, in my dream... All right, before I get into the dreams, I'm going to unpack those last few verses. So, first thing to notice, these guys, they both are sent to this prison, and we'll get into it, but they're not in prison forever, and they kind of know this. They did something to offend him. Eventually, they'll get out, because, you know, Pharaoh's kind of like a diva, you know, going off of emotions and stuff like that. Joseph's put in charge of them, and notice, again, this Joseph is a godly man. He cares. He's caring. He noticed that these guys look sad. It's funny. It's like one of the first nights in prison, and Joseph's like, why do you look so sad? I'm in prison, Joseph! Like, why do you think I'm sad? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, aren't you expecting him to look sad? But he doesn't have to do this. He takes time. He cares. He wants to know, what's wrong? Are you guys all right? You know, and you look really down and distraught. And this is also a reminder to Joseph's kind of behavior. Again, Joseph is seen with favor all throughout. He's a hard worker. He's diligent. He's well liked. Why? Because he's pleasant also. He's a hard worker who's pleasant. He's probably in prison like, all right, what we got to do today, guys? You know, hoo-hoo. And he noticed these guys are looking very down and distraught. I'm thinking, my guess, at least if it was me, you know, I would assume that they would be distressed because they're in prison and they weren't before. So, but even though, I would still go up to him and want to console them. And that's, you know, because I'm trying to be a good person, a godly person. And, you know, you'd want someone to be there to lean on their shoulder if you were having a hard time. So Joseph wants to be that for these guys. And then they say the reason they're sad isn't because they're in prison, but because they had dreams and no one in prison can interpret their dreams. Like, because I'm in prison, isn't that the reason you're sad? Anyway, and I love the line that Joseph gives back to him. Do not interpretations belong to God? Because remember, they have like this mysticism type of religion, you know, and things like that. Joseph's like, what do you mean interpreter? God interprets things. You know, even if somebody interprets your dream, if he does it accurately, it's because God gave him that interpretation. Because this is Joseph's culture. This is like, nothing, everything's given to us by God. Like, dummy. He says it in such a, like, duh sort of way. You know, like, you don't need an interpreter. You just need faith in God. Don't you know that? It's funny to me. He's like, you guys aren't aware of this? Alright, so let's get into the dreams. Verse 9. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it bundled, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup in my hand, and I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup unto his hand, after the former manner, when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and shew kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me to Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph. Okay, before I get into the chief baker there. So, again, Joseph worships God. He has complete belief, faith, and reverence towards God. And right away he says, doesn't God interpret the dreams? And it's almost like because he says that and because he actually believes that, that's why he's able to interpret the dreams. Because God gives him the interpretation, and God gives it to him because he believes that God is the only one that can interpret dreams. He's not taking good credit for being able to do it. Before he even does it, he gives credit to God. So, again, these other mysticism guys and magicians and wizards or whatever that the Pharaoh had around him, they was like, look what I can do. Look at my power. And Joseph's like, oh, no, God's the only one who has power. I mean, yeah, this is what it says, and God reveals this to me. I'm not the one with power. It's God. And he interprets the dream pretty easily there. And again, it's not through because I don't want to get into it because most everyday Christians don't really think about this or care about this. But mysticism, this stuff is real. I mean, it's throughout the Bible. There's these dark magics that exist. And one of the things that makes it dark and evil is when you use it for your own self-gain. If you pay reverence to the Lord, first off, you're not going to do some of the more extreme things. But as long as you give reverence to the Lord, then it's okay, because then he's doing it. You're not doing it through some sort of nefarious demonic means or anything weird. God's doing it through you because you pay reverence to the Lord. It's a totally different thing. And so remember, Joseph says, once you get out of here, though, but remember, show favor on me. Mention to Pharaoh, I'm in here, I'm innocent. First off, I was stolen as a slave from the land of the Hebrews, and then I was put here for a crime I didn't commit. You can tell that I'm kind. You can tell I'm a good guy. Just remember me when you leave here. Remember that I was able to interpret your dream, or that God was able to interpret. My God was able to interpret your dream. So the baker, when the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of bake meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. Ooh, not as good of it, and I mean, it's still accurate interpretation, but not as good a news. The butler's probably like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. What's mine mean? What does my dream mean? What does my dream mean? Because he just found out the butler is getting out of here and giving his position back. So he's like, what's mine mean? What's mine mean? You're going to be killed. Your head's going to be removed. That's what yours says. But no, give me a translation like his. Give me an interpretation like that guy's. I don't want this one. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. Alright. So that's the end of the chapter right there. And this is, again, the Bible's just putting the history of what happened down for you. More than likely what's going on here is there was probably somebody stealing money or some crap like that, or equivalent of that sort of thing, some sort of corruption. And these 2 are the head suspects of it. And they were thrown in prison. And the investigation turned up that the butler was innocent, but the chef is guilty. And whether or not the butler wasn't innocent and the chef was guilty, in reality, who knows? But that's what probably the Pharaoh's investigative team turned up. So that's what was going on here. Like, until we figure out what happened, put him in prison. Joseph, you're in charge of these guys while they're in prison. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's guys are looking into everything and probably torturing people for information. And they come to find out that this is what happened. The chef that's been embezzling or sleeping with some woman he shouldn't be or something like that. And the butler's innocent. So the butler gets set free, and the baker dies. Now, one thing key to remember. First off, Joseph gives reverence to God. Okay, he gives credit to God. He doesn't take it, say, I can interpret your dream. He says, no, all interpretations belong to God. Tell me your story. And because he venerates God and gives credit to God, he can interpret it because God knows he's not going to use it for his own gain or his own favor. But he does say, remember me. I'm not asking for you to... He doesn't even tell him to set me free. He just says, remember me. Tell me about my story to Pharaoh. That's all he asks, Just tell my story to Pharaoh. Tell him I'm in here, I'm innocent, I'm a Hebrew who's stolen as a slave, who's put in here on charge, didn't commit, and tell him that I was able to interpret your dreams. That's all he asked for. Of course, the butler forgets. And first time I read it, I guess I can see it from both point of views, but at first time I was like, what a jerk. How do you not remember this guy who accurately interprets your dreams? And maybe it's because they have mysticists and wizards and whatever, high priests and things like that who take ayahuasca type drugs and can see the future and interpret dreams. So they're like used to it. It wasn't a big deal to them for one guy to be able to do it in prison. But also, he comforted you, man. Like, you were in there for 3 days. You can remember the guy who interpreted your dream and told you that you were going to get out, and it turned out it was accurate. Like, you forgot about that. On the other side, he may have just been super overwhelmed and excited to have been set free, and also still kind of nervous to approach Pharaoh, He's just like, I'm free. Okay, don't mess this up. Don't mess this up. Yes. Don't mess this up. Don't mess this up, So I can kind of understand, I guess, why he didn't say anything to Pharaoh. At least at first, but over time, you would think that he would have said something, but it's not until something jogs his memory that he does. Still, it's weird that he doesn't feel like that's low. Not that these are all moral men or anything, but come on, man. The dude did you right in prison. How are you gonna forget him like that? Alright, so this is the story of Joseph. Now he's building a reputation. He's already built a reputation of no matter where he goes, things become successful. It doesn't matter if it's for Potiphar's household, doesn't matter if it's the prison he's in, doesn't matter if it's interpreting dreams. He is successful in everything he does, and he's building this reputation. And he's adding interpreting dreams to his resume of accomplishments and things that he's able to do. Again, very similar to the story of Daniel. There's so many parallels between Joseph and Daniel, and this is again one of them. Daniel builds up a reputation of being able to interpret dreams, and that's kind of where he comes to Nebuchadnezzar and the kings and Babylon and all that stuff. And this is what Joseph's doing in Pharaoh's Egypt. He builds up a reputation as a diligent, hard worker who's successful, and then he starts adding to his resume. His ability to interpret dreams. And this is very important in their time frame. I mean, it's weird, but think about it. They didn't have all these distractions that we have. Dreams are very important to people. In any culture, dreams are a big thing. And it's only in modern day that we've kind of write dreams off as nothing burgers, it's just whatever. It's just your mind having imaginations. But the mind's a powerful thing, and I really think that there's something to dreams. Now, should you focus so much on a dream? No. But if you have a dream that you feel is, we've all probably had these, I think. A dream that you really felt something in, felt powerful, and you remember it, there might be something to it, and you can say what you will, and a lot of people who would criticize me for this type of talk are Christians, and it's ridiculous because it's right in the Bible. Like, dreams are an important thing. And you should try and understand your dreams. And how do you understand them? By knowing that all interpretation comes from God. Once you know that and you believe it, you may not be able to interpret it, but you'll know that, how do I say this? You personally may not be able to interpret it, but you'll know that it has a meaning and that someone of God can interpret it. Alright, I don't know if I said that the way I'm thinking, but hopefully it made sense. Alright, so this is the story of Joseph, and we're going to get even more into it. I absolutely love the story. It shows you how to live in another society. Always hold on to your virtues. No matter where you go, no matter what's going on in the world, hold on to your virtues. Don't let society change you. Don't let society make you into something that you know to be wrong. Like, a great example is this: no matter how things get, no matter how bad things could be in the world, would you become someone who murders for revenge, who kills for revenge? Now, especially throughout history, there are times where taking life is a necessity. You do have to be willing to do it, but you have to do it for justice' sake. We've talked about this before with the sons of Jacob killing the guys who raped their sister, and wiping out that whole village and everything. Once you do something out of vengeance, it's not justice anymore, and then it's wrong. You have to hold on to your virtues no matter what happens. Hold on to your values no matter what happens. Again, I'm not saying that there aren't circumstances that call for certain type of action, but you have to do that action because it's just and right, not because it's going to serve you and your desires, your need for revenge, or your need for some sort of satisfaction or closure. No, you have to do it to serve God. And Joseph is able to hold on to this. No matter what, he's going to hold on to his virtues and his values, which are integrity, working for God, being a diligent, hard worker, loving his neighbor, being caring and respectful, and telling the truth. All right, so that's chapter 40. Next one, we'll get more into Pharaoh's dream and Joseph interpreting that, and more into the story of Joseph, which I love. All right, everyone have a good, wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or good night. God bless.